My beloved of Britain, listen closely. Hear the word of Archangel Michael. This message is not for the crowd. It is not for the ones who fit in, who follow the rules of this world, and feel at home inside its walls. It is not for the people who can scroll past a divine message like this one and feel nothing. This is for you, the one who has always felt like a stranger, even in familiar places across these British Isles. The one who sits in rooms full of people and still feels like a visitor from somewhere else. The one who questions why things never quite worked out the way they were supposed to, no matter how carefully you followed the instructions everyone else seemed to thrive on. You did not stumble onto this message by accident. You know that already, do you not? Something in your chest tightened the moment you heard the first words. That is because this is a divine interruption, a sealed message from beyond the veil, carried upon celestial wings, and it has found you at the perfect time, not a day early, not a day late. Heaven does not miss its appointments, and this one has your name upon it. Let me ask you something, my chosen of the realm, and I want you to answer honestly, in the quiet place where only you and God can hear. Have you ever felt exhausted just thinking about going after another job? Not tired from working, but tired from the very thought of it, tired before you even open the screen. You sit down to search the listings, and something inside you goes gray, like a light being dimmed by an unseen hand. Not because you are lazy. Let me say that again. Because someone across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland needs to hear it twice. Not because you are lazy, but because every part of your spirit knows it is not where you belong. Have you felt your soul resisting the idea of settling into something that dims your light? Have you typed your name into one more application, attached one more CV, answered one more question about your greatest weakness, and felt like you were writing a confession for a crime you never committed? Have you sat in an interview saying the right words, wearing the right clothes, while a voice deep inside you whispered, "This is not it. This was never it"? And have you been hearing a deeper voice underneath all of that? One that keeps whispering, "There is something else you are meant to do." Not louder than the world, never louder, but steadier, more patient. A voice that has outlasted every disappointment, every rejection, every closed door, every year you told yourself you would figure it out eventually. If so, hear me now, sons and daughters of Britannia. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are being rooted by God Himself. Chosen ones of the United Kingdom do not look for work the way the world does. Why? Because you were never sent to this land to be merely workers. You were sent here to be awakeners, to be carriers of divine assignments, to be reminders in human form that this world is not all there is. When God formed you, He did not consult the job market. He did not check which industries were hiring across the cities and shires. He wrote an assignment into your spirit before your mother ever knew your name, and no worldly application portal has a field vast enough to contain it. You have likely noticed by now that no matter how hard you try to follow the so-called normal path, something always breaks down. The offer that fell through at the last moment, the position that dissolved right before you signed, the company that felt promising until the day you walked in and felt your spirit fold in on itself like a letter being put back into its envelope. The door that everyone said was open that somehow closed the moment you reached for it. You counted these as failures. You lay awake in the quiet of the British night replaying them, wondering what was wrong with you. But what if nothing was wrong with you? What if something was right with heaven? You are not cursed, my beloved. You are being set apart. There is a difference, and the difference changes everything. A curse takes things from you to destroy you. A setting apart takes things from you to prepare you. The world has systems that were never made with you in mind, and God in His mercy has refused to let you succeed in cages. Some of those closed doors were not rejection, they were rescue. Some of those failed plans were not punishment, they were protection. You wept over doors that God Himself had locked, because He loved you too much to let you build a life inside the wrong room. And God's message to you today is simple, and it is direct, and it will confront everything you were taught. Do not go after ordinary jobs. Do this instead. Step fully into your divine gift. Step into the celestial calling that has been pressing on your spirit since the day you were born upon this earth. The reason things have not worked out the way you expected is because you are meant to live by a different blueprint, heaven's blueprint. One where your purpose creates your provision, where your obedience attracts overflow, where your gift opens the door that no worldly resume ever could. Think about that for a moment. Purpose that creates provision. Not a paycheck that permits mere survival. Not a salary that rents your dreams back to you one weekend at a time. Provision that flows from the very thing God placed in you before the foundations of your story were laid. This is not fantasy. This is the oldest economy in existence. Before there were applications, there were assignments. Before there were interviews, there were callings. Before any man ever hired another man, God was already sending his servants into their purpose and feeding them along the way. Ask the prophets who were fed in famine. Ask the shepherds who became kings. Ask the fishermen who dropped their nets, the only security they had ever known, because a voice said, "Follow me," and provision followed them for the rest of their days. This message from the Archangel is not meant to inspire you for a passing moment. Inspiration is cheap, and it evaporates by morning. This is meant to awaken you to your true role. You who walk beneath the ancient skies of Britain are not here to blend in. You are here to break patterns, to speak light into dark places, to live in such a way that others remember who they are just by being near you. There are people assigned to your future across this realm who cannot be reached by anyone but you. There are rooms that will not shift until you walk into them. There are prayers being prayed right now across this land by people you have never met, that God intends to answer through the gift you have been sitting on. That is why the enemy worked so hard to make you feel ordinary. That is why every attempt to shrink into a normal life felt like slow suffocation. You cannot bury a seed that heaven planted and expect it to stay quiet. It pushes, it aches. It keeps you awake at night with visions of a destiny you have not yet touched. That ache is not dysfunction, child of light. That ache is destiny refusing to die. The time of hiding is over. The time of playing small across this ancient land is done. You are being called into spiritual leadership, divine creativity, and healing assignments that no corporate title could ever hold. There is no position called light bearer on any careers page. There is no listing for chain breaker, no salary band for burden lifter, no department for the one who restores hope to houses that forgot what hope sounds like. The world does not post openings for what you are, because it does not know how to. But heaven has been holding your position open since before you were born, and no one else can fill it. Wherever you are, whether in a busy office in London or in the stillness of the countryside, know this: God saw you before he sent this word. He knows your account balance. He knows what you almost gave up on last week. And still he says, you are not behind. You are being positioned. Take a breath. Sit up, my chosen one of Britain, and let every word that follows find the places in you that have been waiting years to hear it. Before we go deeper, chosen ones of Britannia, I want to give you 3 signs, 3 unmistakable marks that you are one of the ones this celestial message was sent for. Because the enemy's favorite trick is to make a chosen soul across England, Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland listen to a word like this and think, this is beautiful, but it is probably for someone else. So test yourself against these 3 signs honestly, you who dwell in the British Isles, and let the evidence speak. The first sign is this: success in the wrong thing has always felt strangely empty to you. Notice I did not say failure, I said success. Anyone can feel bad about failing. But you, my beloved of Britain, you have felt hollow while winning. You got the promotion, and the celebration lasted a single evening before the gray feeling crept back in. You received the praise, the pay rise, the impressive title, and stood under the dim streetlights, wondering why it felt like someone else's victory. The world cannot explain that. Psychology can barely explain that. but heaven explains it perfectly. When you succeed at an assignment that was never yours, your spirit refuses to celebrate because your spirit keeps honest records. It knows the difference between applause and alignment, and it will not let you be comforted by the wrong prize. If you have ever grieved in the middle of what everyone else in this realm called a win, that is the first sign. You are not ungrateful. You are chosen. And chosen ones of the United Kingdom cannot be satisfied by worldly substitutes. The second sign is this. Seasons of loss kept stripping you of things you thought you needed, and yet somehow you are still standing. Look back at your own history across this land. The friendships that dissolved when you started changing, the opportunities that collapsed for reasons no one could explain, the version of yourself you had to bury, the plans that died in your hands while you begged them to live. An ordinary life does not require that much pruning. A decorative plant is left alone in its corner. It is the fruit tree that the gardener cuts again and again deliberately, because he is planning for harvests the plant cannot yet imagine. You have been cut like someone the master has great plans for, and here is the proof that the pruning was divine and not destructive. Everything you truly needed survived. Every loss that felt like it would end you did not end you. You sit here today lighter than you wanted to be, emptier than you planned to be, and still breathing, still hungry for purpose, still hearing the heavenly whisper. The enemy takes things to destroy you, but God removes things to prepare you. If your life has been a long history of holy subtraction, that is the second sign. The third sign is the strangest one, and the most tender. Strangers open their hearts to you. Have you noticed it? People you barely know across your hometown tell you things they have told no one. The colleague who suddenly shares her whole life story by the kettle. The elderly soul in the clinic waiting room who talks to you like you have been friends for decades. The acquaintance who says, "I do not know why I am telling you this." It happens to you constantly, and you have probably never once considered what it means. Let me tell you what it means, my chosen of the British realm. The broken can sense a healer before the healer knows what he is. The lost can sense direction on a person the way a thirsty traveler senses water. People are drawn to what God put in you, even while it is still hidden. Even while you doubt yourself at 2 a.m, their souls are not confused about you. Only your mind is. If people keep handing you their pain without being asked, heaven is showing you over and over what your hands were consecrated to hold. That is the third sign. Now, if you recognized yourself in even one of those, understand what that recognition means. It means the restlessness you have carried across this ancient land is not a malfunction to be medicated away by another endless job hunt. It is a divine summons, and a summons requires a response. Think of how differently heaven recruits compared to the systems of this world. The world posts an opening and waits for applicants. Heaven interrupts. It interrupted Moses in the wilderness with a bush that burned without being consumed. It interrupted Gideon while he was hiding, calling the frightened man a mighty warrior before he had won a single battle. It interrupted Mary in a quiet town and altered history in a single conversation. Not one of them was searching for a vacancy. Heaven does not review applications. Heaven issues assignments. And an assignment does not ask if you feel qualified. It asks if you are willing. Here is what you must settle in your heart, beloved sons and daughters of Britain. Being chosen is not a compliment. It is a holy responsibility. The world has flattened that word until it sounds like flattery, like being picked first for a game. But in sacred truth, being chosen almost always meant a harder road, a lonelier path, a longer preparation, and a purpose that outweighed the person. Joseph's calling looked like a pit and a prison for years before it looked like a palace. David's anointing looked like caves and running for his life long before it looked like a crown. If your calling has felt like weight rather than privilege, you have understood it better than most. And that weight explains the loneliness, does it not? That specific loneliness you have never been able to name. You can be surrounded by family who love you in your home and still feel solitary, because love is not the same as spiritual understanding. They see your actions, but they cannot see your heavenly blueprint. They watch you decline what they would have accepted, and they conclude something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. You are simply carrying something they were not given to carry. Even Christ in the garden found his closest companions asleep, because they could not bear the burden that was not theirs. If your journey across this life has required you to walk stretches alone, you are on the sacred part of the path where footprints thin out, because few are called that far in. So listen to the rest of this word, not as a bystander, but as a soldier receiving celestial orders. Somewhere in this message, there is a sentence with your name upon it. When it lands, you will feel it like a key turning in a lock that has been rusted shut for years. Do not rush past it. You have spent enough years asking the wrong question. The question was never, who will hire me? The question was always, who sent me to this British soil, and what did he send me to do? Chosen one, you have been forcing yourself into a machine that was never built for you. You have been folding your wings to fit inside an office cubicle. You have been shrinking a calling meant for nations into a job description written by a stranger. Every time you chose the so-called sensible option, your spirit shut down like a house going dark room by room. You smiled in the interview and heard a voice deeper than your own whispering, "This is not it." You blamed yourself. You called yourself lazy, inconsistent, ungrateful. But the truth is this: you were never broken. You were misfiled. From the day you were born, the world trained you to serve its engine. But while others chased promotions, you were asking, why am I alive? That ache was not dysfunction. That was divine dissonance, the sound of an eternal instrument refusing to play a temporary song. A sparrow can be content in a cage that would drive an eagle mad. And it is not because the eagle is ungrateful. It is because the eagle remembers the open sky. Your assignment asks for your fire, and you cannot pour your holy fire into a spreadsheet. Your energy is sacred, chosen one of Britannia. Your time is an offering. When they measure your minutes and monitor your keystrokes, your spirit rises up and says, I was not created for this scale. You cannot measure an ocean with a teacup, and you cannot measure an eternal calling with a time clock. Remember Joseph, a dreamer sold into a foreign land, locked into systems that were never his true destiny. He served in a house, he served in a prison, and he served with excellence. But the whole time, the dream stayed alive in him, humming beneath the surface. The prison did not cancel the palace. The prison was the sacred corridor to the palace. And remember David. While his brothers stood in fine armor, David was out in the fields tending sheep, overlooked, unlisted, uninvited. The oil of anointing found David in a hidden pasture, not in a lineup. The anointing does not need your worldly credentials, it needs your location. And your location is wherever obedience has placed you. So stop asking why the applications across the British cities came back with silence. What if the rejection was divine protection? What if God shut those doors the way a loving father pulls a child back from a rushing road? Some of those positions would have paid you just enough to forget who you are. Some of those corporate halls across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland would have become comfortable coffins for your spirit. You were not turned away, my beloved. You were turned around. There is a soul listening across Britain right now who has sent out hundreds of applications this year, holding a folder full of tailored cover letters, each one feeling like a small act of self-betrayal, bending your story to fit another man's mold. Hear me. Heaven is not silent about you. Sometimes the doors stay shut because the master builder is still finishing the territory you are actually meant to inherit. From the outside, your life might look like inconsistency to those who do not understand. You walked away from things others called secure. You set down projects. Your family whispered about your choices. But that was not instability. That was spiritual resistance. That was your inner spirit refusing to sign a contract that heaven never authorized. A weaker soul would have surrendered by now, comfortably numb in a life that was never theirs. Your inability to settle is your divine evidence. Where does your real work begin, chosen one of Britannia? It begins where your obedience begins. And obedience does not always look like feverish activity. Sometimes obedience is silence, when everyone demands an explanation. Sometimes obedience is rest, while the whole world is rushing. Sometimes obedience is building quietly in the dark, with no applause. What the world across this land calls risky, heaven calls divine alignment. You were not created to hustle merely for survival. You were created to transform how others survive. You were sent to this ancient realm to create sacred space where weary people can finally breathe, finally hear the truth, and find hope. You were sent to heal wounds that modern clinics have no code for. In the spirit, you are not an ordinary employee. You are an embassy of light. And here is the eternal promise. Provision follows assignment. The ravens fed Elijah at the brook because the brook was where God sent him. When you stand where you are sent upon this earth, doors begin to open that no human connection could ever unlock, doors that open only from heaven's side. There is a woman in her 40s listening right now, beneath the gray skies of Britain, who fears she missed her moment. She thinks the window closed years ago while she was doing the responsible duty, raising children, keeping the home, working with tired hands. Hear the word of the Archangel. You did not miss it. Your assignment did not expire. It waited. It is waiting still, and it will recognize you the moment you turn toward it. You thought the goal was worldly satisfaction, but transformation was always the purpose. You were not seeking a comfortable seat. You were seeking a burning bush. Remember Nehemiah rebuilding the broken walls. When his enemies tried to lure him down into endless worldly meetings and distractions, he sent back the answer, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. People of the United Kingdom, let that be your declaration. You are doing a sacred work. You cannot come down to the plains of compromise. They told you that you were wasting your potential. Your family said it out of worry. Your old teachers wrote it on reports. Your friends showed it in their glances. But love without spiritual understanding still wounds. They are measuring a holy cathedral by its temporary scaffolding. What this world calls drifting, heaven calls divine resistance. A hand has been holding you back from settling in the wrong place. Look at how relentlessly you pursue what truly belongs to you. You have discipline in abundance for your true calling. What you lack is grace for someone else's machine. The world measures hours, metrics, and accumulated wealth. But heaven measures obedience and alignment. By heaven's scoreboard, a soul standing still in the center of God's will is further ahead than every runner racing down the wrong road. One obedient conversation across this British land can outweigh a decade of empty labor. Elijah listened on the mountain. God was not in the violent wind, not in the earthquake, not in the roaring fire, but in the still, small voice, the quiet whisper. You will not join the frantic roar of the crowd because you are listening for that whisper. You are being retrained, my chosen of the British Isles. You are being emptied of the old programming that told you your worth is your economic output, or that rest must be earned. God is fashioning a new vessel within you. Stillness looks like failure only to a culture addicted to hustle. A generation that cannot sit quietly for 10 minutes is not qualified to diagnose your divine waiting. Hear this, sons and daughters of Britain, and let your spirit rest. You do not have to prove your worth. Not to relatives who question your path, not to former colleagues, and not to the voice that accuses you in the dead of night. Your worth was sealed before your first breath. The exhausting performance ends tonight. Your mind was wired for heavenly insight, for sudden wisdom, for divine burdens to heal a generation. That sacred equipment was never meant for a corporate break room. So ask in your quiet room, is this disobedience or is this divine resistance? If your refusal carries peace underneath the storm, keep standing firm upon the ancient ground. The delay is not denial, and the resistance is redirection. That closed door was a rudder. That heaviness was a compass. Move only when the Spirit moves you. If you are called to rest and realign in this season, do not let the world guilt you out of the quiet place where God speaks. Rest is not rebellion against your destiny. Rest is part of your assignment. What was stripped away from you could never have carried you to where you are going. Your winding path is not an ending. It is the commissioning of your soul. Now lift your head, chosen ones of Britannia. Because this chapter ends with your vindication already written in the heavens. Let the skeptics talk. Let them hold their worldly meetings and reach their small conclusions across the cities of this realm. None of it moves heaven's calendar by a single hour. While they debate your choices, you are being positioned quietly and precisely for what God prepared before any of them ever knew your name. The table is already being prepared in the presence of all who misunderstood you. Do not rush now. Do not shrink back. Your celestial assignment is far too holy to be compromised in the final mile. Stay in the divine flow, you who dwell across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Move with the still, small whisper. The world will understand later. Heaven understands right now. Hear this, my beloved of Britain, and let it settle into the deepest chambers of your spirit. God did not send you into this ancient land empty-handed. Before your mother ever held you, before your lungs drew their first breath, heaven held a counsel over your life. A divine gift was crafted and placed inside you with sovereign precision. A holy instrument forged in the workshop of heaven, fitted to your hands alone, and sealed within your spirit before time began. You did not arrive in the British Isles to wander about trying to figure out what to do with your life. You arrived here already carrying the answer. The gift is not an optional extra or a hobby for quiet weekends. It is the primary purpose for which breath entered your body. For too long you searched for purpose in worldly positions, hoping an office title would tell you who you are. You searched in the approval of people and the shifting places of this earth, only to find yourself empty and restless. Stop looking outward across the noise of the world. Look inward. The kingdom of God is within you, and so is your divine assignment. Remember Moses standing in the wilderness. When he offered his doubts and excuses, God simply asked him, "What is in your hand?" An ordinary wooden staff in his hand became the instrument that divided seas and shook an empire. The very thing you have overlooked in yourself, child of Britain, is the very gift God intends to use to bring light to this generation. The enemy deceived you into believing that true worth only comes through exhausting struggle, but divine power flows through grace. Pay attention to the ease God gave you, the way your words bring peace to troubled rooms, the way you bring order out of chaos, the way the broken leave your presence feeling lighter and restored. That natural grace is the unmistakable fingerprint of God upon your spirit. The voices of the world told you to be realistic, to fold your dreams like an old letter and put them in a drawer. But what heaven placed within you is not up for the world's grading. When earthly critics told you your gift was insufficient, they were measuring celestial craftsmanship with a broken ruler. Every gift God bestows across this land is complete, potent, and carrying its own divine provision. Your gift was given for great impact across the United Kingdom and beyond. It was given to awaken those who are sleepwalking, to bring clarity where there is confusion, and to shine light into dark places where hope has been forgotten. There is a generation waiting upon your obedience. The enemy recognized your calling when you were young. That is why the discouragement was targeted precisely at your gifts and your voice. But by the authority of the Almighty, the season of shrinking back is finished. The days of hiding your lamp under a basket are over. You were built as a city on a hill across this land, and you cannot be hidden. Heaven is not hiring employees. Heaven is commissioning messengers, healers, creatives, and spiritual builders for this very hour. Your divine gift is your true calling card. It opens doors that no resume or worldly interview could ever unlock. And provision is eternally attached to it. The God who assigns you will never fail to supply you. Release what has been placed within your spirit. Let the living water flow. Begin with what is already in your hands today. It is never too small, and it is never too late. As long as there is breath in your body, your assignment from the throne remains live and active. Step boldly into your divine calling, beloved sons and daughters of Britain, for the light of heaven goes before you. My beloved of Britain, if this archangelic message has touched your soul and awakened your spirit, subscribe to this channel now so you do not miss the next divine word of Archangel Michael. Share this message across this ancient land with any Briton who needs heavenly strength and clarity right now.